Hi everybody, I'm Kristen at Upright Health here with Manasi, and today we're going to talk about her back and hip pain story. I think it's a really important story for you all to hear, so yeah, let's get started. So what originally was going on? What brought you to Upright Health?
So pretty much my entire life had been very athletic, doing every sport, and then eventually got into Spartan training. Was doing that for a couple of years, and then March of last year, I noticed that I started having a lot of pain in my hip and my low back. Initially the pain would come after I would do these intense workouts, but then eventually it just progressed to becoming constant and all the time. It would happen when I would sit, when I would stand, when I would walk, and it would make it difficult to even just work. I would work 12-hour days and I could not walk around and do what I needed to do. It got to the point where the pain was distracting, I couldn't focus, and all I would think about was how do I avoid pain.
Yeah. So what did you do for work?
So I actually am doing residency in emergency medicine, so I needed to be on my feet all day, using my hands, and it was just really distracting overall.
The pain.
Yeah, the pain was.
So what were you originally, so what were you diagnosed with? What did you do to seek treatment, and what type of things did you try out?
So initially, I went the traditional route. I saw an orthopedist I had seen in the past for something minor, and he basically did some hip x-rays and was like, okay, they look fine, go back to physical therapy. Went to physical therapy. I was told there that I had glute med dysfunction and that I had a weak core, and that was why I was having low back pain. And they also said something like quadratus lumborum tendonitis. So we did a lot of core exercises, we did a lot of glute recruitment work, and I would feel better after the soft tissue work, after the heat that they give you, but it just wouldn't stick. Like I was there for 2 months and I just wasn't progressing the way I wanted to. So, and I would say new symptoms were kind of creeping up too.
Okay.
Like different parts of the back would hurt, different parts of the hip would hurt. It wasn't right. So then I went back, and this time I went to see a physical medicine and rehab doctor, and he did x-rays of my low back, he did MRIs of my low back, and all of that stuff was negative. So he's like, okay, I don't think this is primarily your back, so maybe you should go see a hip specialist, because sometimes hip pain can cause back pain. So I sought this new hip guy out in New York City, and he basically said I had trochanteric bursitis, injected my joint, and sent me on my way.
Okay.
So that lasted maybe 3 or 4 days at most. It didn't last long at all, but those 3 or 4 days were nice. Like I was pain-free, but it wasn't permanent. So I didn't go back to the same guy. I just felt like he brushed me off, so I ended up going to a different orthopedist who did a lot of hip surgeries. He specialized in that. So I went to him, and through him I ended up getting an arthrogram of my left hip, and also along with a CT of my hip to check out the bone.
What did that show?
So the MRI or the arthrogram showed basically I had an anterior labral tear, and then the CT showed that my femur was like -7 degrees rotated posteriorly. I don't know what that means. Yeah, and then they also mentioned that I had a cam deformity too.
Oh, man.
So, these are all like foreign words to me. I didn't know what to do with that. And he recommended that I have surgery.
Okay.
He said, maybe this is what's causing your symptoms. It's hard to say, but let's do it. And I literally had been scheduled for surgery, I want to say early September.
Okay.
But then, before venturing into surgery, which is a huge thing, I decided, let me do some independent research.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I came across Matt's library of YouTube videos.
Nice.
And one night, I had been listening to a lot of his lectures on other things, but one night I came across actually your story.
Yeah.
And as I was listening to it, I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I had. This is like my pain twin. So it really inspired me to put surgery on hold and give it a shot. It seemed like you were back to baseline, and you were even doing step work, and you were lifting. I was like, wow, so it is possible to get better. So instead of having surgery, I actually
basically
I came out here. I flew out here for my first appointment.
And that same day, were you supposed to be scheduled for surgery?
That same, yeah, like that weekend.
That same weekend?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, I put it on pause.
Yeah.
I was like, whatever, let's try one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of my attitude at that point, because I had tried so many things and they had failed.
Yeah.
So I was like, what's one more?
So glad you came. Looking back now, what would you give advice to for people who are looking, who are in the same situation that you had with pain and looking for answers? What advice would you give to them?
So, if you've had your share of imaging done and everything's coming back pretty normal, I would recommend looking into exercises and kind of finding the weak muscles and trying to balance them and make them stronger, maybe finding the overly strong and tight muscles and making them longer. And I feel like coming here really taught me that in combination with foam rolling and doing stretches and then targeting the muscles in my lower body that were very weak. I was able to regain balance and walk normally, and even now I can jog 2 miles or so. I can do a stepper for 15 minutes, and I'm even up to 30 burpees right now. So I think it all comes down for these aches and pains is muscle imbalance, and coming here has really showed me that.
And how to address those. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was super, super inspiring. You came a long way, women on a mission from all the way from New York City. So that's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, send them our way. And remember, pain sucks. Life shouldn't.